In the distant future, humans had spread across the stars. Humanity was no longer confined to Earth. Colonies thrived on distant planets, and human technology had advanced to the point where star travel was not only possible but common. Humans were known across the galaxy for their resilience, their courage, and their unique ability to adapt to almost any environment. Yet even with these great achievements, nothing in human history could prepare them for what awaited on Scythera. Scythera was a strange, distant world, bathed in soft violet light from its twin suns. The planet was covered in towering forests, with leaves that shimmered like liquid metal. Its skies were alive with flocks of floating creatures, their wings glittering with colors humans could barely name. The Zitherians, the planet's dominant species, were unlike anything humans had ever met. They were a society of intelligent, highly advanced alien women. They had no males, and their technology and culture had evolved without them. For centuries, they had faced a quiet crisis. They could not safely bear children. Their species was in danger of slowly fading away. The Zitherian Council, a group of wise leaders who had guided the planet for generations, decided on a bold plan. They had heard of humans' reputation for bravery and adaptability. They knew humans could survive in conditions that would harm most other species. They also knew humans had something their species lacked: strong, flexible bodies, capable of carrying life in ways Zitherians could not. And so, the Council made an unusual offer. Zitherian technology had advanced to the point where they could implant their embryos into humans, allowing their children to grow safely in human carriers. They would pay generously, offering sums that could make a human family wealthy for generations. And in return, humans would carry Zitherian children until they were ready to be born. The news spread quickly across human colonies. Some humans reacted with shock. "It sounds impossible," they said. "Carrying another species' child? How could that even work?" Others were more curious. "Rates when Reather takes..." They saw opportunity. The chance to make history. The chance to help an entire species survive. And yes, the chance to earn wealth beyond imagination. Among the volunteers was Commander Elias Vance. Elias was a seasoned explorer and strategist, a man who had led missions to uncharted worlds and faced dangers few humans would dare. He had seen strange creatures, harsh environments, and the unpredictable dangers of space. But even he felt a shiver of uncertainty as he read the Zitherian Council's message. Carrying a child of another species. "It's more than just biology," Elias said to himself. "It's a responsibility that could change everything." Still, he could not ignore the sense of excitement stirring in him. Humans were meant to explore, to face challenges, to push boundaries. And this bizarre, impossible task was exactly the kind of challenge that could define him. After careful thought, he signed the agreement to become one of the first human carriers. Soon, a group of volunteers assembled on Scythera's largest landing station. They were a diverse group, men from every human colony, each with a different story, a different reason for volunteering. Some were driven by curiosity, some by ambition, and some simply by the chance to be part of history. The landing station was vast and luminous. Its walls were made of a crystal-like material that refracted the violet sunlight, bathing the entire space in gentle colors. Zitherian engineers, tall and elegant, moved gracefully through the halls, explaining the process to the human volunteers. They spoke in soft, melodic tones, their language strange but carefully translated through devices that allowed immediate understanding. "The process is safe," one Zitherian explained. "Your bodies will adapt to the embryos. Our technology ensures that the growth is monitored, controlled, and protected. But this is more than a medical procedure. This is a partnership between species. It requires courage, responsibility, and respect." Elias listened carefully. He could see the truth in her eyes. The Zetherians were not asking for charity. They were asking for trust. And trust, he knew, was often the most dangerous thing to give. The procedure itself was unlike anything humans had experienced. Advanced machines scanned their bodies, adjusting for the unique biology of each volunteer. The Zetherian embryos were tiny, shimmering with a faint inner light, almost like they were alive even before implantation. The humans watched as the first implantations began. Some felt fear, others excitement, and all felt a strange, unshakable connection to the life growing inside them. Elias lay on the smooth, glowing table as the Zetherian scientists worked. The moment the embryo was introduced into his body, he felt a strange warmth spreading through his chest. It was not painful. It was not frightening. It was alive. A tiny spark of life, a new beginning, a future that could change everything. As days passed, the human volunteers began to notice changes. At first, they were subtle. Slight improvements in energy, sharper senses, a sense of intuition they had never experienced before. The Zetherians monitored them closely, recording every development. "This is remarkable," one human scientist whispered to Elias. Elias nodded, feeling a quiet pride. Humans had always been known for their ability to adapt, to survive, to thrive, where others could not. And now, they were showing the galaxy just how extraordinary they could be. Outside the laboratories, news of the project spread across the stars. Some alien civilizations were skeptical, even hostile. How could humans be trusted with another species' future? Rumors circulated of hidden dangers, secret agendas, and the unpredictable consequences of mixing species. But others were amazed. They saw humans stepping forward, facing challenges with courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. For many, it was a new hope for the galaxy, a hope that humans could be allies, protectors, and pioneers of life itself. Back on Zythera, the human volunteers began forming bonds with each other. They shared fears, hopes, and stories of their lives before arriving on the planet. They trained together, learned about Zetherian culture, and discovered that the journey they had embarked on was more than just physical. It was emotional, moral, and deeply transformative. Elias often spent hours walking among the violet forests of Zythera, thinking about the future. He knew that these embryos were not just children. They were a bridge between species, a symbol of trust and cooperation. He felt a responsibility that went beyond the usual duties of a human explorer. This was a responsibility for the future of an entire civilization. One evening, as Zythera's twin suns set and the sky turned a deep shade of purple, Elias gathered the human volunteers. They stood together on a cliff overlooking a valley filled with floating crystal lakes. "We are part of something bigger than ourselves," Elias said. "This is not just a mission. This is history. We are not only carrying life, we are carrying hope, trust, and the possibility of a new future for the galaxy. It will not be easy. There will be challenges we cannot imagine. But humans have never backed away from the impossible, and we will not start now." The group nodded in quiet agreement. Each of them understood that this journey would change them, change the Zetherians, and perhaps even change the galaxy. In the weeks that followed, the humans settled into their new lives as carriers. They learned the rhythms of Zytherian society, the intricacies of their technology, and the responsibilities that came with holding life inside their own bodies. Slowly, they began to understand the full depth of what they had agreed to. Elias watched as a young Zetherian scientist approached him one morning, holding a small device that measured vital signs. "You have adapted remarkably," she said. "Faster than we expected. Your bodies, your spirits, are extraordinary." Elias smiled faintly. "Humans have always been extraordinary," he replied. "We just have to be brave enough to show it." And with that, the first chapter of a new history began. A history where humans would not only survive in the galaxy, they would shape it, protect it, and, in ways no one yet imagined, transform it forever. The galaxy was watching, and for the first time, humans were ready to show what they could truly carry: life, hope, and a future that might just change everything. Weeks had passed since the human volunteers had arrived on Zythera. Each of them now carried Zytherian embryos inside their bodies, a responsibility that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The volunteers were closely monitored by the Zytherian scientists, who ensured that the growth of the embryos was healthy and that the humans' bodies were adapting safely. Commander Elias Vance had grown used to the strange sensations in his chest, a warmth that pulsed with a life of its own. It was not painful, but it was constant, a reminder that he was now a living bridge between two species. He often felt a faint connection with the embryo, as if it were aware of his thoughts and emotions. Elias had never experienced anything like it. Humans could carry life, but this was something more than that. It was a shared consciousness, a silent dialogue that transcended language. Other volunteers noticed changes too. Mateo, a young engineer from a mining colony, reported that he could sense the mood of the embryos. "It's like they respond to us," he said one morning during training. "If we are calm, they stay calm. If we are nervous, they react." The Zytherian scientists were fascinated. They had never seen their embryos interact with a host in this way. The human volunteers were not only carrying life, they were forming an early, unspoken bond that could have long-term effects on both species. Elias spent much of his time in the simulation chambers, learning to balance physical endurance with the mental focus required for carrying the embryos. The simulations were intense. Humans had to navigate unpredictable terrain, heavy equipment, and extreme conditions to prepare for potential emergencies. Every test revealed something extraordinary. Human bodies were adapting faster than Zytherian science had predicted. They healed quickly, withstood stress that would have exhausted others, and even displayed subtle improvements in reflexes and strength. One evening, while walking through the violet-lit forests of Zythera, Elias noticed another change. His senses were sharper. He could hear the faint hum of the trees, feel the subtle movement of air, and sense the presence of small creatures hidden among the metallic leaves. It was as if carrying life from another species had awakened something dormant within him, a natural ability humans had rarely displayed. The Zytherians called it a symbiotic adaptation. They explained that the embryos were not merely passengers. They interacted with their human hosts in ways that enhanced their physical and mental capabilities. Elias found the idea both fascinating and unsettling. Humans were being changed in ways that could alter the course of evolution itself. Not all changes were easy to accept. Some volunteers struggled with the mental connection to the embryos. Sleep was often interrupted by strange dreams, where they saw the Zytherian world through the eyes of the embryos. At times, emotions would surge uncontrollably, leaving them exhausted or confused. Yet, despite these challenges, every volunteer reported a growing sense of purpose. They were not just participants in a scientific experiment, they were guardians of the Zytherian future. Meanwhile, the galaxy beyond Zythera watched with a mixture of awe and suspicion. News of the human volunteers spread to neighboring planets, reaching political leaders, scientists, and curious civilians alike. Some alien species were fascinated by the project, admiring humans' courage and adaptability. Others were wary, fearing the unknown consequences of merging species in such an unprecedented way. On Zythera, tensions quietly began to rise. A small faction of humans grew restless, questioning the risks they were taking. What if something goes wrong? One volunteer asked Elias during a training session. What if we can't carry them safely? What if this changes us too much? Elias understood their fears. Humans had always faced danger, but this was different. This was not about exploring a hostile planet or fighting an enemy. It was about carrying the future of an entire species in their own bodies. Yet he remained firm. "We are not just carrying life," he said. "We are shaping it. And humans have never been afraid to rise to the impossible. We will not fail. Because failure is not an option." As the weeks turned into months, the human volunteers began to notice another remarkable development. Their thinking had sharpened. Problem-solving came more easily. They could strategize complex scenarios in ways that felt instinctive. Some volunteers even reported the ability to anticipate small events, almost like a sixth sense. The Zetherians studied this with intense curiosity. They had never seen such rapid cognitive development in carriers of their species. The humans' growing abilities were not limited to the physical or mental. Emotional bonds deepened as well. The volunteers began caring for each other in ways that went beyond friendship. They shared meals, comforted one another during moments of doubt, and celebrated small victories together. The embryo, they realized, was teaching them something profound. The future could only be carried forward if humans worked as a united force. One day, a small crisis tested the volunteers' abilities. A storm struck Zythera. A sudden, violent surge of violet lightning and wind that no simulation had predicted. The volunteers were caught in the forest while on a training mission, and their instincts were immediately tested. Elias took charge, guiding the group through the storm. He sensed danger before it arrived, warning volunteers to duck as lightning cracked through the metallic trees. Mateo and another volunteer formed a protective circle around a fellow carrier, who had tripped, using their bodies to shield him from debris. Every movement was precise, coordinated, almost instinctive. The storm passed, leaving the volunteers shaken but unharmed. Afterward, the Zetherians observed in awe. "Your species. It is stronger than we imagined," one scientist said. "You adapt. You protect. You survive. And you thrive in ways that we did not predict." Elias knew this was more than physical strength. Humans had not only survived the storm, they had demonstrated leadership, courage, and unity. They had protected life without hesitation, proving that adaptability was not just a trait. It was a philosophy, a way of approaching the impossible with intelligence and courage. The months continued, and the human volunteers' connection to the embryos grew stronger. They began to notice patterns, subtle pulses of energy, small instinctive movements within their bodies, and even moments of shared thought. It was as if the embryos were not only alive, but communicating with them on a deep, instinctive level. Zetherian scientists began referring to the humans as partners in evolution. They marveled at the ability of humans to not only carry their future, but to improve themselves in the process. Elias often wondered how much of this change was permanent. Would humans return to their old selves after the embryos were born? Or was this the beginning of a new phase in human development, a step forward in the evolution of the species itself? One night, Elias stood alone on a cliff, watching the twin suns sink beneath the horizon. The sky glowed with a mix of violet, gold, and deep blue. He felt the embryo stir within him, a gentle reminder of the life he carried. For the first time, he truly understood the magnitude of what he had agreed to. Humans were no longer simply explorers of the stars. They were carriers of the future. They were catalysts for change. The galaxy beyond Zythera remained uncertain. Other species watched, some with admiration, some with fear. But Elias did not worry. Humans had faced the unknown before, and they had always adapted. This was no different. In fact, Elias realized this was the defining challenge of humanity's existence: to rise to impossible circumstances, to carry the weight of life and responsibility, and to prove that courage, intelligence, and empathy could overcome even the greatest uncertainty. And so, life on Zythera continued. The human volunteers trained, adapted, and learned. each day discovering new ways to protect the embryos and themselves. They were becoming stronger, smarter, and more connected than ever before. The seeds of a new future began to take root, one that would not only save the Zitherian species, but also transform the galaxy in ways no one had imagined. Elias smiled faintly, feeling a deep connection to both the embryos and his fellow humans. "We are ready," he whispered to the quiet forest. "Ready to carry life, ready to carry the future, ready to show the galaxy what humans can truly do." The first carriers of Zitherian life had begun their journey. And in the quiet hum of the violet forests, under the twin suns, the galaxy's next chapter quietly began, one in which humans would prove that courage, adaptability, and the ability to unite for the greater good could change everything. Months had passed since the human volunteers had first carried Zitherian embryos. Every day brought new discoveries, small changes, and growing connections. The humans had adapted remarkably, their bodies and minds strengthening in ways the Zitherians had never imagined. Now, the moment they had prepared for was approaching. Commander Elias Vance stood in the central Zitherian medical chamber, surrounded by other human volunteers. Machines hummed softly, monitoring vital signs, energy levels, and the precise growth of each embryo. The room was filled with a quiet tension, a mixture of hope and anxiety. Humans and Zitherians alike knew that what was about to happen could change the course of history. The first birth began quietly. Mateo, the young engineer, felt a rush of warmth and energy as the embryo inside him responded to the final stage of development. It was not painful, but it was intense, like the universe itself pulsing within him. The Zitherian scientists watched closely, recording every detail. Then, the child emerged. Small, delicate, and radiant, with a faint inner light. It was unlike any human or Zitherian. Its eyes held a curious intelligence, and its tiny movements suggested awareness beyond its size. Mateo gasped, realizing that he was not simply a father, he was a guardian of something extraordinary. Elias's turn came next. As the embryo within him reached maturity, he felt a deep connection, unlike anything he had experienced before. The child moved gently, almost as if it recognized him. When the birth was complete, the Zitherians carefully handed the hybrid to him. Its skin shimmered softly, a mixture of human warmth and alien luminescence. Elias held it close, feeling the life inside as more than just a body. It was a mind, a potential, a bridge between species. The other volunteers followed, each holding their hybrid children. A sense of wonder filled the room. The humans had anticipated challenges, but this was beyond expectation. Each child displayed early signs of extraordinary abilities. Some responded instantly to the humans' thoughts, moving or reaching out as if they could sense intentions. Others seemed aware of their surroundings with uncanny precision, noticing details that adults often missed. Zitherian scientists were both astonished and cautious. "These hybrids," one of them said, "are not only alive, they are evolving. Faster, stronger, and smarter than we predicted. Their development is unprecedented." Elias watched as the first hybrid smiled faintly at him, a simple gesture, yet full of meaning. He realized that humanity had accomplished something remarkable. They had carried life across species and, in the process, unlocked potential that could reshape the galaxy. But the celebration was tempered by awareness of the wider universe. News of the hybrid births quickly reached neighboring systems. Some species reacted with admiration and curiosity. Others reacted with fear. A few saw humans as a threat. Beings who could now create life that combined resilience, intelligence, and adaptability in ways no other species could match. Tensions began to rise. Small incidents of interference occurred near Zitherian colonies, subtle attempts to monitor or control the humans and hybrids. Elias recognized the need for caution. He organized the human volunteers, teaching them strategies to protect themselves and their children, while maintaining peaceful relations with the Zetharians. Despite these external pressures, the humans and hybrids formed deep bonds. The children grew rapidly, showing extraordinary mental and physical abilities. Some could anticipate small events before they happened. Others learned quickly, solving puzzles and performing tasks far beyond their years. The humans realized that these were not just children, they were partners in a new phase of galactic evolution. Elias spent long hours observing the hybrids, noting patterns and behaviors. One hybrid, a small child named Lyra, showed a remarkable ability to sense danger. When a minor storm struck Zythera, Lyra guided volunteers to shelter with instinctive precision, moving before anyone else noticed the change in wind or light. Another, named Orion, demonstrated early problem-solving skills, arranging objects in patterns that indicated understanding beyond instinct. The human volunteers began to realize something extraordinary. The hybrids were not simply combining human and Zetherian traits. They were exceeding both. Their minds were sharper, their reflexes faster, and their empathy remarkable. They could sense the emotions of humans and Zetherians alike, offering comfort, guidance, and insight even at their earliest stages. This awakening did not go unnoticed. The galaxy began to stir with curiosity and concern. Ambassadors from distant systems visited Zythera under strict supervision, observing the hybrids. Some praised humans for their courage and adaptability. Others whispered warnings about the potential dangers of such beings, creatures who could influence entire worlds through intelligence, strength, and empathy. Within the Zetherian Council, debates erupted. Some leaders wanted to continue the project at full scale, seeing the hybrids as a bridge to new alliances and advancements. Others feared unintended consequences, worrying that humans might gain too much influence, or that the hybrids might be used for purposes beyond Zetherian control. Elias listened quietly to these discussions, understanding both sides. Humans had always acted as catalysts for change, but they had also faced fear and skepticism wherever they went. He knew the key was balance. To protect the hybrids, while guiding them with wisdom and care. The first test of the hybrids' abilities came sooner than expected. A rogue alien faction, fearful of the potential power of humans and hybrids, attempted a covert attack on Zythera. Their goal was simple: capture the children and use them to gain leverage over other species. The attack began with stealth ships appearing in orbit, firing precise energy pulses toward the colony. Elias and the human volunteers reacted immediately. They moved through the violet forests and crystalline valleys, guiding Zetherian citizens to safe zones while coordinating defensive measures. The hybrids, despite their young age, instinctively aided the humans. Lyra's danger sensing alerted volunteers to incoming threats. Orion calculated patterns in the attack, predicting movements and suggesting optimal defensive responses. The humans realized that these children were not only alive, they were partners in survival. Together, humans and hybrids repelled the attackers. Using a combination of strategy, instinct, and the hybrids' emerging abilities, they outmaneuvered the enemy forces. The rogue faction, unprepared for such coordination, retreated. In the aftermath, the Zetherians watched in awe. Humans had not only carried their future, they had defended it with courage, intelligence, and unity. The hybrids, small but capable, had proven themselves as part of a new generation of beings who could change the galaxy's balance. Elias knelt beside Lyra and Orion, feeling a surge of pride and wonder. "You are not just children," he said softly. "You are the future, and we will protect it together." Word of the victory spread rapidly. Across human colonies and alien worlds, people began to see humans in a new light. They were not just explorers or traders, they were creators, protectors, and pioneers of life itself. The galaxy started to whisper a new truth. Humans could rise to challenges in ways no other species could, combining courage, intelligence, and empathy to achieve what others deemed impossible. The hybrids continued to grow, learning quickly and forming bonds with humans and Zetherians alike. Their presence brought hope, inspiring new cooperation between species and opening doors to alliances previously unimagined. Elias realized that humanity's role in the galaxy had fundamentally shifted. Humans were no longer just survivors, they were architects of the future. As the suns of Zythera set, casting the violet forests in soft shadows, Elias reflected on the journey so far. The human volunteers had faced uncertainty, fear, and the unknown. Yet they had adapted, thrived, and helped create something extraordinary. The hybrids were proof that courage, unity, and ingenuity could produce miracles, and that humans had the potential to shape the course of civilizations. For the first time, Elias understood fully. This was only the beginning. The galaxy would watch, some with hope and some with fear. But humans and their hybrid partners would continue to rise, to protect, and to carry life forward in ways that would echo for generations. And so, life on Zythera entered a new phase. The first hybrids, born of courage and trust, had awakened their abilities. Humans had proven themselves as guardians, innovators, and partners in evolution. The galaxy was no longer a place where humans merely survived. It was a place where humans could lead, protect, and inspire. The hybrids giggled, laughed, and moved with a confidence that surprised even their guardians. Elias looked at them and smiled. The path ahead was uncertain, but one truth was clear. Humans had carried life into the stars, and in doing so, they had begun to change the galaxy forever. Life on Zythera had settled into a new rhythm. The human volunteers had proven themselves as extraordinary carriers, and the hybrid children had grown in leaps and bounds. They were faster, smarter, and more aware than anyone had anticipated. Their intelligence and intuition often surprised even the most experienced Zetherian scientists. Humans and hybrids were no longer just caretakers, they had become the pillars of a new age. Commander Elias Vance observed the changes with a mixture of pride and caution. He knew that their success had attracted attention, and not all of it was friendly. News of humans carrying Zetherian life had spread far beyond the planet. Some species admired the courage and ingenuity of humanity, while others began to fear the potential power of the hybrids. Diplomatic envoys arrived from neighboring systems. Some came with curiosity and goodwill, eager to study the hybrid children and learn from humans' remarkable adaptability. Others carried veiled threats, concerned that humans and hybrids could upset the balance of power in the galaxy. The humans on Zythera worked tirelessly to maintain order and build trust. They organized training programs, safety protocols, and public demonstrations to show that the hybrids were not weapons. They were a symbol of cooperation, intelligence, and hope. Humans proved that courage, empathy, and ingenuity could create solutions where fear and aggression often failed. Meanwhile, the hybrid children displayed extraordinary abilities. Lyra, the youngest, had an uncanny sense of timing, always anticipating danger and guiding humans and Zetherians to safety. Orion, now more mature, demonstrated problem-solving skills far beyond his years. He could analyze patterns in technology and environmental systems, suggesting improvements and solutions that even adult scientists had not considered. Elias realized that the hybrids were not only changing human understanding, they were teaching humans new ways to think. The children's perspective, a combination of human adaptability and Zetherian intellect, offered insights that no single species could achieve alone. Humans were learning faster, strategizing more effectively, and even developing subtle enhancements in reflexes, intuition, and cooperation. As their influence grew, humans began forming alliances across the galaxy. Other species who admired their courage and ingenuity offered partnerships in exploration, trade, and scientific research. Humans were becoming a force not just of survival, but of progress. But with success came opposition. several powerful factions feared humans' growing influence. A coalition of alien worlds, wary of humanity's ability to create hybrids with extraordinary capabilities, began plotting ways to limit human expansion. Rumors of sabotage, espionage, and covert attacks reached Elias and the human volunteers. Elias convened a council with the other volunteers and Zetherian leaders. They needed a strategy that balanced diplomacy with preparedness. Humans had survived countless dangers, but this challenge required both intelligence and foresight. "We cannot fight every fear with force," Elias said. "We need to show the galaxy who we are. Humans are not conquerors. We are creators, protectors, and innovators. Our strength lies in our courage, our unity, and our ability to solve problems where others see only obstacles." The Zetherians agreed. They had witnessed humanity's unique abilities. Firsthand, the capacity to adapt, to protect life, and to think in ways that no other species could. Together, humans and Zetherians developed a plan to demonstrate their value to the galaxy. A combination of humanitarian efforts, technological advancements, and strategic partnerships. The first demonstration came during a crisis on a neighboring planet. A massive meteor storm threatened to devastate a human colony. Humans, guided by hybrid intuition and advanced strategies, coordinated a rescue operation. Hybrid children like Lyra and Orion played key roles, predicting meteor paths and assisting in evacuation plans. The combined efforts saved thousands of lives and impressed observers across the galaxy. News of the rescue spread quickly. Species that had been wary of humans now saw them in a new light. They realized that humans were capable of achieving the impossible through courage, intelligence, and cooperation. Humans were not merely surviving, they were creating solutions that benefited everyone. Meanwhile, rival factions could not ignore the growing influence of humans and hybrids. A coalition of alien powers began to challenge human authority, attempting to undermine their reputation through misinformation and political pressure. Elias understood that confrontation was inevitable. "We cannot allow fear to dictate our actions," Elias said during a council meeting. "We will respond with strategy, diplomacy, and example. Humans have always risen to challenges by using our greatest strengths, our minds, our courage, and our unity. This is no different." The strategy was clear. Humans and hybrids would strengthen alliances, demonstrate their abilities through positive action, and protect themselves without aggression. Every human volunteer became both a guardian and an ambassador, teaching others that collaboration was more powerful than fear. The hybrids continued to grow. Orion, now more capable than ever, began assisting humans in designing new technologies. His insights combined human creativity with Zetherian efficiency, resulting in tools, energy systems, and communication networks that surpassed existing standards. Lyra became a natural leader, guiding teams of humans and Zetherians through exercises, teaching cooperation, empathy, and foresight. The galaxy began to notice something remarkable. Humans were not simply adapting, they were improving. Their ingenuity was accelerating, inspired by the presence of hybrids. Humans were no longer just survivors, they were innovators, protectors, and problem solvers. Tensions came to a head when a rogue faction attempted to attack Zythera again. This time, with a larger fleet. Humans and hybrids prepared strategically. Using intelligence gathered from previous encounters and the children's extraordinary abilities, they created defensive formations that were precise, adaptable, and effective. The hybrids played a crucial role. Lyra anticipated enemy movements, guiding humans and Zetherians to optimal positions. Orion calculated patterns in real time, adjusting strategies on the fly. The humans executed the plan with courage and precision. The rogue faction was outmaneuvered and forced to retreat, their confidence shattered. The victory was not just military, it was symbolic. The galaxy had witnessed the combined strength of human courage, hybrid intelligence, and unity. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were leaders, capable of facing threats and solving problems in ways no one else could. In the aftermath, a new council formed, including humans, Zitherians, and representatives from allied species. This council focused on cooperation, exploration, and shared development. Humans contributed not only courage and strategy, but also innovative ideas inspired by the hybrid's abilities. The galaxy began to recognize a new truth. Humans could rise to challenges, unify diverse species, and create solutions where others failed. Elias looked out over the violet forests of Zithera, now thriving under human and Zitherian guidance. The hybrids played and trained, their laughter filling the air. Humans and Zitherians worked side by side, building a new society based on trust, courage, and intelligence. He understood that this was only the beginning. The hybrids were the living proof of what could happen when humans faced impossible challenges with bravery, unity, and ingenuity. They were the embodiment of human potential, inspiring hope and progress across the galaxy. Elias smiled, watching Lyra guide a small team through a complex obstacle course. Orion was nearby, analyzing energy flows and suggesting improvements to the training systems. The galaxy was changing, one hybrid, one human, one act of courage at a time. Humans had carried life, yes, but they had also carried hope, wisdom, and the potential to transform civilizations. The galaxy was watching, some with awe, some with fear. But all were beginning to realize that humans were not just survivors, they were architects of the future. The story of Zithera was no longer a secret. Across distant planets, humans were celebrated for their courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. Aliens who once doubted humanity now sought their counsel, their partnerships, and their guidance. Humans had risen to a new level of respect, not through conquest, but through problem-solving, cooperation, and the courage to face the impossible. As night fell over Zithera, Elias and the volunteers gathered in the observation tower. The twin suns had set, leaving the sky ablaze with stars. The hybrids slept nearby, exhausted from their training. Yet their energy and potential filled the room with a quiet hum of possibility. Elias turned to his fellow volunteers. "We have carried life into the stars," he said softly. "We have protected it, nurtured it, and helped it grow. They will test us, challenge us, and fear us. Our task is clear: to rise to those challenges with courage, intelligence, and unity. Humans have always done it before, and we will do it again." A sense of purpose settled over the group. They were no longer just volunteers. They were guardians, innovators, and pioneers of a new age. The hybrids were not just children, they were partners in a future that humanity was helping to shape. And so, the galaxy shifted. Human courage, intelligence, and ingenuity were no longer hidden. They had become a force of progress, a symbol of possibility, and a reminder that life could thrive where hope and determination existed. The humans of Zithera had begun to change the galaxy forever.